Hello, everybody. So I'm here. Oh, Will Freeman was here, but according to this, I have 0 viewers. That's fine. It might pick up. It might not. I know. I haven't done a stream in a very long time. Quite a while. Month? It's been a month. Something like that. It doesn't matter. And so I come back to torture my audience with what? A live stream that JiL did on his channel where he basically declares that he's like God's gift to Christian apologetics, wisdom, women. Men want to be him. Women want to have him in them. So I'm just going to get started. By the way, this is pure boredom stream. I'll probably throw out a link for anybody who wants to join in this. This is probably going to go ridiculously off track, especially if like Peter shows up or even Vegeta shows up. Probably go off track. Either way, I'm going to see what I can do. I started listening to this. Hey, Captive Desk. There's some shit here that is. I started listening to it when I got up this morning and I was walking my dog. Yes, I actually slept during the. I normally sleep during the day because I work night shift, but I made the mistake of falling asleep. God forbid. Uh, I fell asleep. I got up around 7:30, took the dog for a walk, and while I was walking, I was listening to this particular stream or a little bit of it. And the hilarity is, I mean, just out of this world. It's just hilarious. But yes, if Will Freeman's back, hello to Will Freeman. Hi, Captive Desk. I'll go ahead and go for a few minutes. If anybody is interested in joining, like now, in fact, I'll just write this in here. But yeah, so if anyone is, yeah, let me delete that comment real quick. I completely fucked that up. Anyone is interested in joining the stream, let me know. And I'll drop a link. But if no one's interested in joining, I'm going to keep throwing out the fucking link, just just in case people want to join. Let me know if you want to join. I'll throw out a link. Okay, here we go.
The bitter waters. The bitter water. Remember?
So apparently he gets on. There's multiple topics that he's going to broach, and this is the way that he's going to do this. Is like, oh, the atheists get this one wrong. Neat.
The bitter waters. The atheist doesn't understand logic, simple logic.
Okay. Now,
let's take a closer look.
Now, bear in mind, that becomes part of what I'll be commenting on later, where he just made that claim. Atheists don't understand logic, right? Meaning if you're an atheist, you just don't understand logic. You're ignorant of logic. You don't get it. I will be doing something here. Let's see. All right. There we go.
Look at the bitter water story. This is one of the atheists apologetic, or one of the atheists apologist favorite topic to speak on, but they speak out of ignorance. Remember,
yes, they speak out of ignorance. Just bear that in mind.
Their father is the devil, who is the father of lies. So when they present anything, whether it be scientific, whether it be, they can't really do that with Swiss mathematics, even though they're trying to. Two plus
Okay.
two is no longer four. So anything they touch, they will pervert.
Now, if you notice, there's already a contradiction here. He's 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 trying to say he's implied, or he straight up just stated that atheists can't do logic. They operate from a place of ignorance. Ignorance means you're ignorant. You don't know, right? But then he goes to say, well, their father is Satan. He's the father of lies. Lies are intentional, right? So now he's he's contradicting himself all in the span of just a couple sentences here. They're ignorant, which would mean they're not really at fault. They're not intentionally doing something. They're just they're just ignorant, meaning they don't know. Now he's implying, but they twist things. That's intentional. The only way you can twist something is if you know what's true and then you twist it so that it's no longer true, or just enough so that people don't get the truth but get confused, or it works towards to your means. It's deception and lies, right? So which one is it? JiL does this all the time.
They will give you the skin of the truth. If you do get some truth from a liberal, it's the skin of the truth, stuff with a big fat line. So let's take a look at the bitter water test, because logic and reason seems to evade the liberal's mind.
See? But so now the logic evades the liberal's mind. So it's not an intentional thing. It's the logic seems to evade their mind, meaning they don't have logic. But then he'll turn around and then he'll start appealing to some kind of intentional act on part of. And remember that when JiL uses the word, and for those who are new, who aren't used to JiL, and when I say JiL, that is the user who goes by rebuke and reprove, he means atheist. So liberal, atheist, they're synonymous with, right? They're synonymous with one another, because there's no way that you have an atheist that's not a liberal politically.
When they're reading and examining the Bible, the biblical text. I do understand it, but I don't. I understand it from a spiritual perspective. But psychologists called.
Okay, but that's a now what he's appealing to there is the fact that, well, now if you're he's appealing to that part in the Bible in the New Testament talks about like the natural man kind of looks at the things that the believers hold to as like absurd, doesn't make sense to them because they don't have the spiritual discernment, right? It's not their fault. They're just lacking spiritual discernment. So again, now he's appealing to some state that these liberals as atheists just don't have.
To suggest it's cognitive dissonance, they call it. That's the only way I can explain how you cannot logically figure this out. All the details are given to you.
I don't think that's not. No, logically you could figure it out. I don't think that necessarily follows, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, in the text, how is it that you're able to sit down? You're not able to sit down and figure this out logically using some common sense.
Okay. Appeals to common sense are not really a good thing, especially when you're dealing with some kind of scriptural. Math Pig, is there new people here? Laugh out loud. Laugh out loud. Yes. Thank you, Math Pig. I really should have stressed that if as a big if. So I'm going to go ahead and read the section that he's going to be talking about, which is the bitter waters. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, to speak to the Israelites and say to them, if any man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, if a man has had intercourse with her but is hidden from her husband, so that she is undetected, though she has defiled herself, and there is no witness against her since she was not caught in the act. If a spirit of jealousy comes on him, and he is jealous of his wife who has defiled herself, or if a spirit of jealousy comes on him, and he is jealous of his wife, though she has not defiled herself, then the man shall bring his wife to the priest, and he shall bring the offering required for her, 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour. He shall pour no oil on it and pour no frankincense on it. For it is a grain offering of jealousy, a grain offering of remembrance, bringing iniquity to remembrance. Then the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord. The priest shall take the holy water in an earthen vessel and take some of the dust that is on the floor of the tabernacle and put it into the water. The priest shall set the woman before the Lord, dishevel the woman's hair, and place in her hands the grain offering of remembrance, which is the grain offering of jealousy. In his own hand, the priest shall have the water of bitterness that brings the curse. Now, pay very close attention to that. In his own hand, the priest, so in the priest's hand, he shall have the water of bitterness that brings the curse. Then the priest shall make her take an oath, saying, if no man has lain with you, if you have not turned aside to uncleanliness, while under your husband's authority, be immune to this water of bitterness that brings the curse. But if you have gone astray while under your husband's authority, if you have defiled yourself and some man other than your husband has had intercourse with you, let the priest make the woman take an oath of the curse and say to the woman, the Lord make you uh, an execration and an oath among your people when the Lord makes your uterus drop, your womb discharge. Now may this water that brings the curse enter your bowels and make your womb discharge, your uterus drop. And the woman shall say, amen, amen. Right? So that's all that takes place in this little ceremony, right? Then the priest shall put these curses in writing and wash them off into the water of bitterness. He shall make the woman drink the water of bitterness that brings the curse, and the water that brings the curse shall enter her and cause bitter pain. That's if she's guilty. The priest shall take the grain offering of jealousy out of the woman's hands and shall elevate the grain offering before the Lord and bring it to the altar. And the priest shall take a handful of the grain offering as its memorial portion and turn it into smoke on the altar, and afterwards shall make the woman drink the water. When he has made her drink the water, then, if she has defiled herself and has been unfaithful to her husband, the water that brings the curse shall enter into her and cause bitter pain, and her womb shall discharge, her uterus drop, and the woman shall become an execration among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be immune and be able to conceive children. Right? Now, and that says, and it goes on. This is the law in cases of jealousy when a wife, while under her husband's authority, goes astray and defiles herself, or when a spirit of jealousy comes on a man and he is jealous of his wife, then he shall set the woman before the Lord, and the priest shall apply this entire law to her. The man shall be free from her iniquity, but the woman shall bear her iniquity. So that's what he's going to be addressing. So here we go.
Using common sense or applying common sense to Numbers 5 and the bitter water test. Okay. Premise 1. All right. So we know the story. The story has to deal with men who were, many of them were falsely accusing their wives. So this test was set up in order to vindicate the ones who were innocent, of course. So they would be taken to the temple or taken to some area or place, and they would apply this bitter water. The priest would apply the bitter water. The woman would drink the water. Okay, and if she were guilty, something bad, she would be cursed. Basically, she would be cursed with barrenness, not an abortion, but barrenness, meaning she could not have children. If she were innocent,
there's a problem though.
She would be blessed with children, with more children.
No, it just says she'll be able to conceive. Some translations say she will conceive. Either way, I was reading from the NRSVUE. Either way, it seems to be that when you're reading this, it's about fertility and infertility, right? And it's not necessarily about an intentional abortion. I don't know of any non-believer who has argued this as an intentional abortion, because there's a hidden premise here that JiL always wants to deny, or he just does not want to see it, right? Because again, he probably is of the position that this was an actual thing that they did culturally and that this process actually worked, right? This kind of weird voodoo worked to determine whether or not a woman was actually cheating on her husband or not.
The water sort of worked like an oracle. That's the first thing. So remember, the same water blessed the innocent woman. The same water. They didn't change the.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't say that it will bless. See, he's already not getting. He's already fucking up the scripture. What does the scripture mentions it multiple times, and I just read it. It says that the water brings a curse. Right here in right. It starts out. Where is it at? Yeah, it's right there in verse 18. In his own hand, the priest shall have the water of bitterness that brings the curse. Then the priest shall take her, and the oath saying, if you have if no man has lain, and then there's the oath, right? If she's, and then it says later on, if she has not defiled herself, then she'll be immune to the water. Right here, verse 28. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be immune and be able to conceive children. So it's mentioned multiple times in this section that what brings the curse? The water. The water brings the curse. The only way that a woman is immune to the water that brings the curse is if she has not defiled herself with another man. He's already he's already demonstrating he did not go back and reread this text. Now, because here's the argument. P1, the water both women will drink will be from the same source. No, any woman. So the P1 isn't really structured properly. So any woman, because it's giving a woman, obviously in the narrative, it's giving a woman who is guilty at the beginning and then a woman that is innocent, right? So he's saying, oh, well, both women. No, any woman, right? So if a man is jealous of his wife and suspects infidelity, um, and there was the other one, and he thinks that there's been infidelity, or he suspects infidelity, or he's just jealous of his wife. Then he can go to the priest and he can have this test performed, right? So the test is to determine whether or not his suspicions are true, right? So once he's suspicious, once he's jealous, if he suspects or he's just jealous, this is already warranted that he can take his wife because she is under his authority to the priest and have this done to figure out whether or not she actually has been cheating. And even if she hasn't been cheating, even if he's just jealous, this test would basically, well, alleviate that jealousy. He no longer has a reason to be jealous of his wife, because if she comes away from this bitter waters test, she's good. So P1 is already formulated kind of shoddily, but I get what he's saying. Both women, so whether it's an actually guilty woman or whether it's or whether it's an actual innocent woman, these women are both going to drink of this water, right? Because obviously they're trying to determine, right? This is for determination of the husband and for the husband, right? Then it says the woman who is guilty, the thigh will rot. Then it says the woman who is innocent will become fertile. No, it just says she will still be able to conceive, not that she will become fertile. There's nothing saying that she was never fertile. Nothing in the data says that the woman was never fertile before this, right? It's just that she's not going to be cursed. She's going to be immune from the curse and be able to conceive. Then it says, it is not the bitter water that causes the curse, but God himself. Now, that conclusion doesn't actually follow from the way that he's formulated the premises. It's a non sequitur. But again, the conclusion is automatically false too, because the scripture, this set of scriptures actually states that the water brings the curse. So he's already fucked up. What if the live wife is Laura Loomer? No, then the sperm's just scared. Is it like a legit magic potion? Uh, kind of, but not really. All it is that they basically have this oath. They write down the curse. They wash the curse off into the water as well with all the other shit that they've put in there. The epa of barley and the dust from the tabernacle floor that goes into the barley water or into the holy water. And then essentially what it is that it's automatically God's curse. So all Jill's doing is basically trying to split hairs. It is the curse that's going to bring about, or it is the water that will bring about the curse. And the reason it does is because it has been basically blessed by the priest. This is God's instrument to determine her guilt, the woman's guilt. If she's guilty, the water brings the curse. If the woman is not guilty, if she's actually innocent, has not defiled herself with another man, she's immune to the water.
The water out. Oh, let's change the water out now that we think someone is before us that's innocent. Let's change the water and make it bad now that we think that someone, the next woman to come before us, is going to be guilty or is guilty. No, it's the same bitter water. The same bitter water had an effect, a different effect, depending on the woman.
No, it didn't have a different effect. It just, I mean, you could argue that it is, but according to the NRSVU, it says the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be immune and be able to conceive children. It says she will be immune. So the bitter water is specifically crafted to bring about, according to this narrative, to bring about a curse. But it only brings about the curse if the woman is guilty.
Woman, whether she was an adulterer or innocent. Woman A, woman B. This is simple logic. Just take the facts of the case and play detective. Atheists, I've always said this, atheists make the worst detectives. They can't figure anything out. They can't even figure out their own gender. Premise one, the water both women will drink will be from the same source. Premise one, the water.
It will be the same. It'll be the same concoction. The water source is holy water, and then there's the preparation of what goes into the holy water. It's the same, whether it's an innocent woman or an actual innocent woman or an actual guilty woman where guilt and innocent have not yet been determined. Both will drink either or. Both types of women would drink the same exact concoction. That's all.
Water both women will drink will be from the same source, not a different source. Not a source for guilty women and another fountain for innocent women.
I don't know of any non-believer who has argued that either. So I don't know. Again, this is one of those things that where Jill's done this a lot, where he starts to he almost like straw man's arguments that nobody has made. Now I've heard some atheists and agnostics, non-believers, whatever, try to make arguments using this, and they try to basically stress that this is an intentional abortion. It's not an intentional abortion. And the reason why they get into the abortion is because of the hidden premise there. There's a hidden premise there that Jill does not like to look at. A lot of Christian apologists don't like to look at when it's dealing with this particular, ritual. I'll get into that in just a minute.
Same bitter water. Premise two, the woman who was guilty, the text says thigh will rot. Her thigh will rot, which is an idiom, a way of saying you won't be allowed to have any children because you were guilty of adultery.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing is like there's a Dan McClellan video that I watched not too long ago where he actually would agree with Jill on this particular point. because it, according to what's being written here, predominantly what this is about is fertility and infertility. Well, number one, it's about jealousy and suspicion of the man, of the husband, right? That's number one. That's the first thing. But what's really, but because of his jealousy or his suspicions and taking his wife there to be tested by the priest with this ritual, what's on the table is her fertility, not whether or not she's going to, if you know, going to have a pregnancy is going to be eliminated. It's just whether or not she's actually, you know, if she's been bad, then she's going to be infertile. If she's been good, she's going to be immune and she's going to be able to conceive.
That's in verse 21. That's in Numbers 5, verse 21.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's based on the oath that they're making. That's part of the oath. Yeah, because it's also because verse 21 is where they're making the oath. So it actually states, so Jill's technically got that wrong. So the then the priest, because it begins with in verse 19, then the priest shall make her take an oath saying, that this is in quotes, if no man has lain with you, if you have not turned aside to the uncleanliness while under your husband's authority, be immune to this water of bitterness that brings the curse. But you have gone astray. But if you have gone astray while under your husband's authority, if you have defiled yourself and some man other than your husband has had intercourse with you, let the priest make the woman take the oath of the curse and say to the woman, the Lord make you an execration and oath among your people that the Lord makes your uterus drop, your womb discharge. Now may this water that brings a curse enter your bowels and make your womb discharge, your uterus drop. And the woman shall then say, Amen, Amen. Right? So nothing has happened yet, but that's the oath. Right? Then it goes, then the priest shall put these curses in writing and wash them off into the water of bitterness. He shall make the woman drink the water of bitterness that brings the curse, and the water that brings the curse shall enter her and cause bitter pain. The priest shall take the grain offering of jealousy out of the woman's hand and shall elevate the grain offering before the Lord and bring it to the altar. And the priest shall take a handful of the grain offering as its memorial portion and turn it into smoke on the altar, and afterwards shall make the woman drink the water. When he has made her drink the water, if she has defiled herself and has been unfaithful to her husband, the water that brings the curse shall enter into her and cause bitter pain, and her womb shall discharge, her uterus drop. And the woman shall become an execration among her people. But if the woman has not defiled herself and is clean, then she shall be immune and be able to conceive. So there's actually two parts where that's mentioned. One is the fact that it's mentioned in the oath that the woman's going to be accepting, and then what if the woman is guilty, then the consequences. But that's mentioned in verse 27.
Okay. The woman who was guilty, premise 3, the woman who was innocent will become fertile.
It does not say that. Not in the NRSVU. Now, I know he likes to read from the NLT, so, or at least he's recommended the New Living Translation to non-believers who seem to have problems reading. Yeah, see, now he even talks about this from because he's told people to read the NLT. The NLT even says she will be unharmed. And it even says in verse 22, now may this water that brings the curse enter your body and cause your abdomen to swell and your womb to shrivel, and the woman will be required to say, yes, let it be so. And it also mentions he will make the woman drink the bitter water that brings on the curse. And it will cause bitter suffering if she is guilty. And then 28, but if she has not defiled herself and is pure, then she will be unharmed and will still be able to have children. It does. Even the NLT doesn't say she will become fertile. And Jill has specifically recommended the New Living Translation for people who, for people who he thinks have a hard time reading.
Verse 28. Conclusion. It is not, therefore, it is not the bitter water that causes the curse, but God himself. He's using the bitter water.
Yeah, that doesn't actually follow. There's the rules of inference are all fucked up, but he's completely off base. Like I said before, the section, the scriptures there specifically say that it is the water that brings about the curse. And why does the water bring the curse? Because of the way it's supposedly set up, but the way the priests consecrate it. And so essentially it's God who's making the water the thing that brings about the curse. But the water still brings about the curse. He's just going to a more general, well, it's God that brings the curse. It's God that causes the curse. Well, God's the one that they're saying, I guess God is necessary for making this concoction do this kind of thing. But it still states in the narrative that the water brings the curse, right? The curse is the curse, and it's in the water. So if the curse can only take hold if the woman drinks it and is actually guilty of infidelity.
As a ritual, as a way to publicly display the shame, or in the case of the innocent woman, to vindicate her publicly. Because
no, there's nothing about this that says anything about public. I don't know where he's getting that from. There's nothing about public anything in this. The Numbers 5 NLT thing, it begins and the Lord said to him, give the following to the people of Israel. Suppose a man's wife goes astray and she is unfaithful to her husband and has sex with another man, but neither her husband nor anyone else knows about it. She has defiled herself, even though there was no witnesses, and she has not been caught in the act. If her husband comes jealous and is suspicious of his wife and needs to know whether or not she has defiled herself, the husband must bring his wife to the priest. He must also bring an offering of 2 quarts of barley flour to be presented on her behalf. Do not mix it with olive oil or frankincense, for it is a jealousy offering, an offering to prove whether or not she is guilty. It says nothing about this being in public. From the very onset, there's nothing about this being a public matter. Right? The husband has suspicions. He's jealous of his wife. He's taking her to see the priest. Now, if she's guilty, then she becomes an oath, or she becomes like what does it say? She becomes like a testament to the people. Watch out! Don't get caught. Not get caught. Don't do this. Because it says her name will become a curse among her people, because she'll become like she'll become like operational experience, right? When she's made an example of, then it's probably known, but not necessarily public from the onset. I don't know where Jill's getting that data from. So going through the Geneva checklist by subjecting everyone to more of Jill. Yes. Haven't you asked him that, Nicola? So Nicola asks, has anyone asked Jill if he'd still be fine with these Bible passages if it was revealed to him by God that the atheist's understanding of these passages was correct? Would he face a moral crisis? I don't know. I've never asked him that. I thought maybe you have, but I've never asked him that. I don't think it would go anywhere.
Because she had been denigrated publicly by her husband, by her husband's false.
It doesn't say she's been denigrated publicly. I think he's conflating this with the I think he's conflating this with the part in which verse is that? I'm blanking on it. Deuteronomy 22, 13 through 21. It's the one where a guy, it's a newly married husband and wife, and on their marital night, he basically says he accuses his new wife of not being a virgin, and then there's this whole process that happens. I think he's conflating that because then the parents are involved, and there's supposedly there's the proof by bringing the bed sheet, and if there's blood on the sheet, then obviously she was a virgin, and then the guy has to pay a fine, and he can never divorce her. But if it's true that she didn't believe, because if there is no evidence of her virginity on the sheet, then she gets stoned to death. Yeah, I haven't. Okay. If he doesn't, then it seems like his attention to these passages doesn't matter in the big picture. Probably not. I don't know. It's JiL. I mean,
false accusation. This is H.C. Brachito suggests that the word be traced to the Hebrew
Brachito?
root YRH, which means to instruct or reveal. When it comes to the bitter water test, this was a test God employed to reveal in Numbers 5 that she was in fact innocent.
I think it's Brichto or Brichto, not Brachito. Did he call him Brachito?
It's to the Hebrew root by her husband's false accusation. This is H.C. Brachito suggests that the word accusation.
Yeah, this
is H.C.
like Brachito. I don't think that's. Let's see if that's even a real person, shall we? Yeah, it's Brichto or Brichto. The Problem of the Curse in the Hebrew Bible, 1963. Yeah, it sounds like he's a semantic scholar. I've never heard of him. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Water of oracle or oracle. What he's trying to say that so he's trying to say that I think JiL's trying to say that it's not the water that brings the curse and then justify it by saying, well, this guy is saying that the water is just a way of revealing the infidelity. It's not actually anything that's bringing the curse. When even though the actual language in the translations, which I just read it from the NLT, which JiL recommends, and from the NRSVUE, that both say that it brings the curse. The water brings the curse. The water contains the curse. Whether a woman is harmed by the curse is dependent upon her guilt. That's simple.
Brachito suggests that the word be traced to the Hebrew root YRH, which means to instruct or reveal. When it comes to the bitter water test, this was a test God employed to reveal in Numbers 5 that she was in fact innocent. If she were guilty, then too bad. You were guilty. You're guilty of.
Yeah, the water would then bring the curse. she would then be affected by the curse that the water brings. The woman that's innocent is immune, like it says in both the NLT and the NRSVUE translations.
Of adultery. Technically, your punishment is death. Okay, so this might have been even a mercy.
Well, that might, maybe I thought about this as well, and maybe it has something to do with the fact that she's not being caught in the act. Remember, in Deuteronomy, it's about them being caught in the act. If a man is having sex with a betrothed woman, right? And obviously it's in the city and that no one's heard her cry, right? They assume consent, right? Because she hasn't cried out or anything, and they're caught in the act, then they're both to be killed. And maybe that's why her name becomes a curse and she's not immediately killed, because they haven't been caught in the act. Maybe that's actually the provision there. I don't know. I'd have to talk. This might be something to bring up, a question to ask to Dr. Josh or even Dr. Dan McClellan and ask him, like, wait, is that the difference here? Because here we see, like, it would seem like death would come if, so first of all, in Deuteronomy 22, let me check here. Do, 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 do. Yep, I'm doing that thing. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Yeah, laws concerning sexual relations. It begins with that one. Da, 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 da. Yeah, if a man is discovered lying with the wife of another man, right? Both of them shall die. So if a man has sex with another man's wife, if a man is discovered lying with the wife of another man, both of them shall die, and the man who lay with the woman as well as the woman. So shall you purge the evil from Israel. If there is a young woman, a virgin already engaged to be married, and a man meets her in the town and lies with her, you shall bring both of them to the gate of the town and stone them to death. The young woman, because she did not cry for help in the town, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. So they consider the engaged woman to be basically a wife. It's the same rule, right? But in this particular case, the woman is discovered through the curse, right? Since there's a curse in the water, the curse brings about this negative, this infertility on the woman. So now it's discovered she has been unfaithful, but it doesn't mention in Numbers 5 that she is to be put to death. Only that her name, I'm gonna go back to NRSVUA on this. I think that her name will become her name is a curse. Yeah, the woman will bear her iniquity. Yeah, the woman will become an execration among her people. That's the word that's used in the NRSVU. Execration is a formal noun that refers to the act of cursing, denouncing, or expressing intense hatred coupled with disgust.
The word means reveal. It would be would then be a plural of abstraction, meaning oracle. So it's an oracle. Okay, oracles work in sort of
The other interesting thing, the thing that he's putting out here from HC Brickto suggests that the word, but he doesn't mention what word what word he's referring to. Yeah, I don't know where
in a
he's
way
getting them from.
whereby if you do the right thing, you can change the path of the oracle. You can change the destiny, your destiny.
Yeah, I don't know
Blesses
what
for
he's
those who
talking about.
follow, curses for those who disobey. It's an oracle. Okay. It's not a prophecy that you will certainly die. No, it's conditional. If you're innocent, you're blessed. Same bit of water. Okay. In any fair trial, this is A.E.L. Feinstein. Okay. If you want to know who these scholars are, you probably never heard of these scholars before because they're not or they're not liberal scholars. They're not critical scholars. All right. They're conservative scholars. Right? That's what I would lean more towards. If you really want to learn how to read the Bible, learn about the culture of the Hebrews.
I'll go ahead and look up E.L. Feinstein. I believe I've heard of E.L. Feinstein before. Mm, that's weird. Let me do a little bit of I'm doing a little oh. Okay.
Rather than just listening to Dr. Josh learn about the clean, critical scholars. In any fair trial, this is A.E.L. conditional. If you're innocent, you're blessed. Same bit of water. Okay. In any fair trial, this is A.E.L. Feinstein. Okay. If you want to know who these scholars are, you probably never heard of these scholars before because they're not or they're not liberal scholars. They're not critical scholars. All right. They're conservative scholars. Right? That's what I would lean more.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Just, I'll just keep going here. Sorry for the silence. I was reading up on this E.L. Feinstein.
More towards. If you really want to learn how to read the Bible, learn about the culture of the Hebrews, rather than just listening to Dr. Josh running his mouth. In any fair trial, the conviction and vindication, this is A.L. Feinstein, the conviction and vindication are both possibilities in any fair trial. This was a fair trial. Same bit of water, two different types of people, innocent guilty. And the text does take pains to emphasize that the trial is fair. No woman will be convicted of adultery merely because her husband suspects her. Not one. Why? Because it was God that was causing the curse or the blessing. So no one mistakenly took the potion who was innocent and wound up now being cursed.
I don't think anyone has argued that. And the curse is in the water. So even if an innocent woman did drink of the water, they couldn't accidentally be cursed. The only way that the curse would, so let's say there's a woman who's going in, right? Let's just throw this out there as a hypothetical. There's a woman who's going in and she's going to take the bitter water, right? And she takes the bitter water, and let's say there's some left over, and another woman comes by and then drinks the water, and then all of a sudden her thigh she becomes infertile, or that she starts going into pain, right? So essentially the curse takes hold. That would tell everyone that that woman is actually guilty of infidelity. So you could actually make up a bunch of this water and go around and hand it to all the women in the tribe, and whichever women start doubling over in pain, they're obviously guilty of infidelity. Any of the innocent women are going to be immune.
Dum, dum, dum.
But that's not how the ritual is performed, because they have to take the oath. It has to be performed by a priest, yada, yada, yada. And by the way,
perfect. Our God is perfect. You couldn't think of a better. A lie detector test is not even this accurate.
now, here's the thing. I didn't know this. I don't think JiL probably even knows this either. Vetus Testamentum there is the text. This is an ancient Latin translation of the Old Testament used historically by the church. But anyway, and that's what she's now. E.L. Feinstein there is Dr. Eve Lavavi Feinstein. She is a contemporary scholar who publishes research on biblical topics such as ritual purity, language, and gender, and has been featured in this prestigious journal. Her major independent book is Sexual Pollution in the Hebrew Bible. Sexual Pollution in the Hebrew Bible. So here's something that she's done. Focus on gender and power politics. In her book, Sexual Pollution in the Hebrew Bible, she focuses heavily on the Bible's gender politics, exploring how ancient patriarchal systems and concepts of property influence laws regarding purity and contamination. Traditional scholarship often avoids evaluating the text through modern sociological or feminist lenses. Affiliation with Progressive Jewish Scholarship. She is a frequent contributor and an editorial consultant for thetorah.com. This platform is famous for promoting academic biblical criticism within a Jewish context, a stance that is explicitly rejected by Orthodox or strictly traditional religious groups who do not accept secular academic critiques of sacred texts. In short, while she is a mainstream academic published by elite institutions like Oxford University Press, her reliance on historical evolution, human authorship, and gender analysis places her firmly in the camp of a quote unquote critical/liberal biblical scholarship. See, the problem is that according to ChatGPT, liberal scholarship doesn't have anything necessarily to do with one's political affiliation, right? I think a lot of times though, JiL likes to use it that way, right? So it's some kind of scholar that holds to democratic views, or or maybe he's using it as a way of saying because they're too liberal with their, you know, too secular, right? No. JiL's proof that life can continue after a massive brain injury. Will Freeman, I'd say it's proof that rare breeds of cabbage can mimic human speech. Damn, Nicola. Shit. That just made the stream. So yes, JiL is actually he is appealing, that bottom portion there. He is actually appealing to a liberal scholar and a woman.
A lie detector test is pretty accurate, but so was this. This was 100% accurate. Lie detector tests are not 100% accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yet
now to get into what I was going to get into before is the hidden premise, right? So actually,
the overall
let it go.
thrust of the passage is an emphatic condemnation of adultery and a warning. That's why it's done publicly. A warning to any woman who might commit it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the bitter water test, God, is this brilliant? It killed, like, it basically, what's the term? It killed 4 birds with 1 stone. That's basically what the bitter water test did.
How?
Happy Father's Day again. Speaking of,
so the hidden premise here, is, if you're going to look at this from a position of like what Jill's saying, well, this is how you're going to get an better idea, like, of ancient Israel culture. So in Jill's mind, this is something that ancient Israelites actually used. So this is true to form, right? This actually worked for these people way back when. Okay, there's a problem here. There's a hidden premise in this, right? We know that men and women can have extramarital affairs, right? And we also know that in ancient times, being able to determine whether or not a woman is pregnant or not probably wasn't as, I don't know, easy to do as it is today, right? No pregnancy tests, right? Pretty much, if a woman cycles on a normal basis, then if she misses that cycle, she could suspect that she is possibly pregnant, right? But still, sometimes a woman's cycle, some things can happen, stress, illness, whatever, can throw that cycle off. Either way, right? But in this case, let's look at this from a realistic standpoint. Let's say we're dealing with a woman, right, where the man suspects that his wife's been cheating on him. And here's the thing, she actually has been. She's actually been cheating on her husband with another man, right? Just recently, she started doing this, and that's why he's suspicious, right? And so now he's suspicious of her, and he takes her in to the priest to have this ritual done to determine whether or not, that way he can know, and the priest can know, that she's actually been doing it, because she's not been caught. She has not been caught cheating, right? She's never been discovered cheating. But again, she actually has been cheating. And now, because she's been in sexual relations with another man, what has happened? She's conceived a child with the other man. But she doesn't know it yet. Now remember, Joe believes that life begins at conception, right? Because he's a pro-lifer, like staunch pro-lifer. So to him, life begins at conception. Neat. So now, let's say the woman is literally just like 2-3 days before this test, her husband takes her into this test. She had sex with a guy, with her boy toy, or guy on the side, and she conceived, right? Meaning, right? He slipped one past the goalie. So she's conceived. She doesn't know it yet. Now her husband puts her through this test. According to this, since it is the case that she's actually, unclean, the curse will take hold. What does it do in cases where the woman is actually pregnant? But doesn't know she's pregnant. JiL doesn't see it that way. So obviously whoever wrote this narrative didn't have that in mind either, because it's predominantly about, it seems to be about determining the guilt of determining whether or not a husband's suspicions and jealousy are actually warranted. And he wants to, yep, I was right to be jealous, I was right to be suspicious of my wife. Come to find out, this, according to this test, that bitch really has been cheating on me. The problem is that the curse seems to cause, according to this narrative, harm to her reproductive system. It causes her to be barren, infertile. What happens if a woman is rendered infertile while she's pregnant, but doesn't know she's pregnant? That's what JiL is missing. So while that might not be the author's intent, the author's intent of the scripture is just to convey, well, yeah, it's about whether or not the guy wants to determine this, and that, yeah, if she is guilty, she's going to be infertile, but any wife that's actually clean, right, is innocent, is going to be immune to the harm of the curse that the water brings. Cool. I like that. Trump supporters? Oh no. What is
The
this?
fathers. I don't understand how this liberal.
Oh, this part's funny. So now we're off that. So I've done enough on that one. So I'm gonna drop all my Bible stuff here. Now we're gonna get into some even funnier shit.
Can post this when this is his legacy. This is your president's legacy, sir. Don't try to project that on the Trump. Read about your president's legacy in Ashley Biden's diary.
Well, technically, every president of the United States is everybody's president. Anybody who lives as a citizen of the United States, that is their president. I don't say go around saying Donald Trump is not my president. No, technically he is my president. He was duly elected, unfortunately, and so yes, he is the president of the United States, making him my president. Right? I don't pull this my president, your president bullshit. Right? Biden wasn't even the president, that it wasn't the guy that I wanted to be president. I voted for him because Trump had his shot for 4 years. Time to give, and he fucked up. In my opinion, he didn't do a very good job. Time to give the reins over to someone else. And the person that I wanted the reins to go to did not make it to that point. Biden did. So I was like, all right, hand the reins to Biden.
And look what he posted.
Could Biden be a fuck up? Could Biden not be squeaky clean? Yep. But this particular path that JiL takes, not good.
Trump. Oh, the Epstein files. The Epstein files. So Trump knew but never reported it. Not factual, buddy. Chat GPT this tonight for homework, liberal. Did Donald Trump work with the FBI to turn in
I think I have actually. It's Jay Bassick live, don't you know? I don't possess presidents. I acknowledge who is president of the United States. So is my president. Exactly. Thank you, Scott. Yeah. So here we go. I remember looking this up. Did Donald Trump work with the FBI to convict, to, let's say, catch and convict Epstein. Now, unlike Jill, I'm careful about how I ask certain questions to ChatGPT. Also, I put it on the highest thinking mode. And you can actually see, sometimes you can see how it's thinking. So we'll just let that run here in a little bit. Yeah, it's still going. Still going. We'll just continue with this until it's done.
Epstein. Did Trump work with the FBI?
As far as I understand it, he didn't work with the FBI. Did the FBI question Trump? Yes. Is it possible that some of Trump's Trump's what some of Trump told the FBI worked in you know, arresting and convicting Epstein? Possibly. That doesn't mean that he worked hand in hand. It doesn't mean he worked with the FBI. So remember, Jill has just said, this is your chat GPT. Now, he said to ask it this way.
To turn in Epstein. Liberal. What? The Epstein and legacy. Legacy, sir. I don't understand how this liberal can post this when this is his legacy. This is your president's legacy, sir. Don't try to project that onto Trump. Read about your president's legacy in Ashley Biden's diary. And look what he posted. Donald Trump. Oh, the Epstein files. The Epstein files.
Yeah. Now, I would like to point this out. FBI confirms Ashley Biden's diary is authentic. In it, she writes about being sexualized at a young age and talking and taking inappropriate showers with her father, Joe Biden. Now, just because the diary has been authenticated to actually be Ashley Biden's diary does not mean that any of the claims within the diary are necessarily true. Just want to throw that out there because Jill probably doesn't know that.
So Trump knew but never reported it. Not factual, buddy. Chat GPT this tonight for homework, liberal.
Okay.
Did Donald Trump work with the FBI to turn in Epstein?
Okay. That's the actual. Okay. Okay. We'll keep going. It's working.
Did Trump work with the FBI?
Oh, I didn't give it. I didn't give it exactly. I put, did Donald Trump work with the FBI? So I wrote. So here's the exact question. Did Donald Trump work with the FBI to turn in Epstein? Well, that's weird. That's interesting. Based on asking it that way, it came back and said this content can't be shown for safety reasons. Okay. So it says, so I asked why can't it be shown? Just give a yes or no. It says no. So as when it comes to the question, did Donald Trump work with the FBI to turn in Epstein? The answer is no. And its response is it can't be honestly shown from the public evidence because the evidence only supports weaker claims. Maybe Trump spoke to Palm Beach police or gave information to victim's lawyer. That is not the same as working with the FBI to turn in Epstein. PolitiFact says that Trump was an FBI informant. Claim was the FBI informant claim was walked back, and Reuters reported DOJ said it was not aware of corroborating evidence for the alleged Trump law enforcement call. So my original I said my original question that I asked it was, did Donald Trump work with the FBI to catch and convict Epstein? So I'll verify this carefully because the claim mixes several distinct things. Worked with the FBI, catch and convict, and Epstein had separate 2008 and 2019 cases. No, not in the strong sense people usually mean by that claim. The cleanest answer is there is some evidence Trump provided information or spoke to people connected to the Epstein matter, but there's no good public evidence that Trump worked with the FBI as an informant or that he was responsible for catching or convicting Epstein. Right? The timeline matters. Epstein's 2008 conviction came from a Palm Beach police investigation that began in 2005 after parents of a 14-year-old girl complained. Palm Beach police later referred that case to the FBI because they thought the state handling was too weak. The federal case was resolved through a controversial non-prosecution agreement requiring Epstein to plead guilty in a state court to solicitation and procurement of a minor prostitution charges. Trump's alleged quote unquote help appears to be later and narrower. Victim's attorney, Brad Edwards, says he spoke to Trump in 2009 and that Trump told me things that were helping our investigation, but Edwards did not specify what that help was. And PolitiFact noted that timeline does not line up with the known FBI investigations in a way that supports the Trump helped the FBI take down Epstein claim. The Trump was an FBI informant claim was walked back. House Speaker Mike Johnson made that claim that his office clarified that he was referring to Edwards' comments, not confirming that Trump was actually an FBI informant. Epstein also was not convicted in the 2019 federal sex trafficking case. He was arrested and charged by SDNY, FBI, NYPD in July 2019, but after Epstein died, the case against him was formally dismissed. So the fair version is Trump may have provided some information to a victim's lawyer and may have spoken favorably to Palm Beach police about stopping Epstein, but that claim that he worked with the FBI to catch and convict Epstein is overstated and not supported by the public record. So JiL's wrong. Chat GPT does not support this.
To turn in Epstein. Google that for homework, liberal, and stop watching CNN. It's called, you can Google the Palm Beach investigation. Okay, former Palm Beach police chief Michael Reeder. Okay.
Yeah, but
so let's get
but Palm Beach is not the FBI. So I don't know why he brought that up. And again, this is not this wasn't very good because it sounded like what he was going to say is, well, look at what Biden did when it comes to his stepdaughter. So let's really, you want to talk about Trump's improprieties? Come on.
Into the topic today. Well, there are many topics. One topic that I wanted to talk about that I wasn't going to speak on until I saw Aikman do his video where he featured some men.
Wait, before I get into this, I do want to check something for historicity. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Keep going here.
And women who are homo no more. So they totally destroy the leftist narrative that
Now there's a problem.
someone
There's a problem that Jill's going to be walking into because Jill doesn't think he has argued that homosexuality isn't actually a thing.
can, if someone is, or their orientation is LGBTQ, they can't.
LGBTQ, it isn't just about orientation. It encompasses a lot of different things. Sexual orientation isn't necessarily sexual identity either. LGBTQ encompasses quite a bit. So the idea of a person not being homosexual anymore would just basically mean they are no longer that would just basically entail they are no longer sexually attracted to the same sex.
Change that because that's your orientation. First of all, there's no science to suggest that. Just like most
Oh, okay.
of your theories, they don't correspond to what you claim to adhere to, which is science, the scientific consensus. There's no science to suggest orientation is permanent or if you're born that way.
I don't think anyone's argued that it is permanent. I've never heard anyone argue that your sexual orientation it has to be permanent. I've never heard anyone argue that. Right? Because here's the thing that Jill doesn't understand. You can be bisexual, and that means what?
Way, no science to suggest that. But that's what they'll argue because they, just like with slavery.
How does he reconcile bisexuality? That's a person who's attracted to both, can be sexually attracted to both members of the same sex and members of the opposite sex. So
slavery in the 19th century, they will twist scripture and science in order.
Now he's saying no, we will twist scripture and science. Earlier he was, this is where Jill's doing it again. Now he's saying that there's an intentionality amongst these atheists to do something. Earlier he was just saying that they're ignorant, but now apparently when it comes to the LGBTQ thing, well, obviously there's intentionality here.
To put blacks on the bottom of the totem pole to justify enslaving them. So the evolutionist and
I thought we were talking about homosexuality.
19th century anthropologist created what they called a great.
Yes, a bad idea doesn't necessarily discredit the science of evolution, dude. A bad idea based on the science of the theory of evolution does not mean that the entire theory of evolution is therefore debunked or therefore follows that particular bad idea. Because people went, oh, well, you know what we can do with the theory of evolution? We can start setting it up so that there's certain human beings that are lower, quote unquote, lower on the evolutionary on the quote unquote some evolutionary ladder, to where now it's justified to treat them like shit. That's not what that science does. You have to accept that the science is true in order to misuse it in that way to do that. That doesn't mean that the science is wrong. That's just some idiots thinking, well, that's what we can do with it. Neat. You can do that all day long. Does that mean it's a good idea? No. Does it mean it's right? No. Does it mean it's actually true? No. Not necessarily.
Gradation of races, meaning each race had a different worth. Of course, Caucasoids were on the top of that list, and the Negroids, that's us.
It sounds like JiL is now trying to make the case that racism is a real thing. Which he's tried to argue that it's not a real thing.
Me and Veckel, we were on the bottom. So because we were on the bottom and we were the lower end of the evolutionary, at the lower end of the evolutionary chain, it was accepted. Slavery was something you were supposed to do for us, because that was the best thing for us. Because we were basically one step up from whatever common ancestor we evolved from. I guess the Europeans evolved from us, then I guess. Yeah. So we were not as far along the evolutionary process or the evolutionary chain as the Caucasoids. So that's why it was okay to enslave us, just like it's okay to have a horse or to breed dogs.
Well, the idea of racism came about before the theory of evolution ever came around. Let's find out. All right. It's still going.
So these same people are lying to you today for the same reasons, really: money, power, and wealth, and to promote their doctrines, to promote their theology themselves.
These days, when there's so much talk about gay rights and transgender rights and laws being passed to protect those rights, a whole other minority is getting ignored. Those who've come out of the gay community.
18 former gays, lesbians, and transgenders stood before the U.S.
I don't know how that's a minority. I don't know how you would argue that if you are now, if you have these groups that are considered minority groups and you have certain majority groups, right? So in order to have a minority group, you got to have a majority group, at least in my opinion, right? So the majority group would be heterosexuals, right? Men and women who are attracted to the opposite sex, right? Sexually attracted to the opposite sex. That's the majority, right? Then you have a minority group of individuals where you have a lesser group, which is a minority group of individuals who are men and women who are sexually attracted to the same sex, right? Now, this doesn't mean that they're having sex. It just means they have same-sex attraction, right? Which is another problem that JiL often has a problem with this distinction, that you can be sexually attracted to the same sex, you don't have to be actively engaged in sex within that sex, right? Or with that kind of sexual, with any kind of sexual intercourse. Either way. Now, so let's say hypothetically, I started out, right? And in my developing years, I come to find out I had a same-sex attraction, sexual attraction, right? And then as years went on, I developed a sexual attraction to the opposite sex and no longer to the same sex, right? Wouldn't I now be in the majority group? So at first, I started out and then I would be considered minority because not as many people have a same sex attraction as people who have opposite sex attraction. So then I'm a minority. But then once I become right, once now I for some reason I've developed a heterosexual inclinations or proclivities, now it seems I would be back part of the majority. I'd be in the majority group again, not a minority where, oh, well, see, now I'm an even greater minority because at one time I was a minority and then I changed to become a heterosexual. So that means I'm a greater minority now. That's stupid.
To proclaim they're real, despite a culture that denies such transformation is possible.
We've experienced a change in our sexual orientation. Some small, some great. I mean, some.
No, you haven't, says the liberal. You're just pretending.
Well, she just said some small, some great. But how did now comes the scientific, now comes the part where you sit down and go, okay, what happened? And the other way that you can also do this, especially with men, is you can do, I think they call it, if I remember the term, vasometric testing, where they attach certain instrumentation to a man's junk and have them look at certain images, and then that instrumentation will detect how much blood flow goes to that area when presented with certain images and videos. This would be to determine gynophilic and androphilic responses, sexual responses to either same sex or opposite sex.
This isn't really it. You're really not changed. It's impossible.
I don't know of any LGBTQ person who has stated this can't happen, or who has argued that, yep, if you're a homosexual, then you are always going to be a homosexual and you cannot change back. You cannot ever go back. You can't ever become a heterosexual. Right? Because the problem with this is acting as though that heterosexual is the default state, that every child must necessarily start at the default state of heterosexuality. And I don't think that's actually the case. Your sexual attraction develops over time. And sometimes some individuals, when they're developing sexually, they just seem to have a sexual attraction to the same sex. But the majority seem to have an opposite sex attraction. That's the majority and the minority in the cases of homosexuality and heterosexuality. There's nothing there that says this kid developed with these same sex proclivities, therefore can never, ever develop heterosexual proclivities. I've never heard that argument.
You were born that way.
Some of us don't experience same-sex.
Destroys their narrative. That's why they are less likely. That's why they're so triggered. That's why they try to get rid of conversion therapy, try to make it illegal to do this, to change.
No, and the other problem here is, were these people subjected to conversion therapy? Jill's not giving us the history of this particular group that's wearing these black shirts. This has changed. Were these people subjected to conversion therapy?
How could you make it illegal for someone to change something about themselves?
Nobody said it is illegal. But for a long time, homosexuality was considered illegal. Right? Because at that time, during those times in society, the way that homosexuality was looked at as same-sex acts, not same-sex attraction. So even if a person had same-sex attraction and they just kept it to themselves, no one would ever be the wiser. The only time that would ever really become a thing is when you start having the same-sex interactions, the same-sex intercourse. Then, but you can still have same-sex attraction without any kind of sex, any kind of sexual activity whatsoever.
You didn't make it illegal for 12-year-olds to cut off their genitals, but you're going to make it illegal for someone to go into a church and have counseling with a pastor?
No, that's not the thing. The kind of conversion therapy, the kind of what they call the deconversion or conversion therapy that they're referring to, was specifically done. It was like sometimes conversion therapy was like forcing people to watch heterosexual porn, or doing things like having them watch, introducing them to homosexual things. Right? They're suspected they are an admitted homosexual, right? And then they sit them down, and if they and then they subject them to certain stimuli, and if they are stimulated by same-sex shit, then they are punished. There's some kind of punishment, right? Some kind of like electroshock, some kind of maybe even a beating, whatever, that's implemented at the time where they start to notice that there's a sexual response to that same-sex shit. That was the deconversion, not just sitting there and having a conversation about a person possibly being confused or possibly having questions about their sexual orientation, or they know that they're attracted to the same sex and are Christian and are talking to their pastor or priest or whatever about that. That's not banned, Joe.
Huh? That's how demonic these people are.
Attraction anymore, and yet everywhere you go, you hear that's utterly impossible.
Not for this former homosexual, now father of 4.
I don't ever get sexually aroused by looking at a man. That hasn't happened in years.
Now father.
Yeah, see?
Father of 4.
Sexually aroused by looking at a man. That hasn't.
Not for this former homosexual, now father of 4.
I don't ever get sexually aroused by looking at a man. That hasn't happened in years.
See? He no longer gets sexually aroused by looking at another man. Did this guy ever say that he actually ever had sexual relations with another man, though? So he's actually making the case. That guy right there is making the case for me. You don't have to have the sexual intercourse in order to be homosexual, right? In this case, a gay man. So, but now, for some reason, he no longer gets sexually aroused by men, by the same sex. Okay. Neat.
Now father of 4.
I still haven't heard anything where this justifies deconversion therapy, because as far as I can tell, maybe it just happened for these people over time. their sexual proclivities just changed over time. I have heard nothing in this whole in this video that he's using that justifies the use of, especially the conversion therapy that JiL wants to promote, which is the shit that I just mentioned earlier. Subjecting them to, right? They've admitted that they're gay. Now showing them some gay shit, they start responding to it physically or whatever, and then hitting them with electroshock or hitting them across the head or doing something that's giving some kind of negative stimuli, negative physical reaction in response to whatever sexual response that their body is having to something same sex.
Wow.
But House Bill 3570 says therapy similar to what helped Ken Williams, and many of these leave the lifestyle, can't do that. It proclaims there is no evidence that conversion therapy is effective, or that an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity can be changed by conversion therapy. Williams worries such a bill would forbid the counseling he insists saved his life by calling all of it conversion therapy.
At 17 years old, I was suicidal. I started seeing a Christian counselor who I saw weekly for 5 years. And it changed. I mean, that was the last day I felt suicidal.
Pastor Jim Dolman said,
Yeah, a Christian counselor. That's not necessarily deconversion. Let me see. What was that bill called again? HR 3570. So let me do this real quick.
He says therapy similar to what helped Ken Williams, and many of these leave the lifestyle, can't do that. It proclaims there is no evidence that conversion therapy is effective, or that
It's kind of interesting how it says it's a lifestyle. A gay person can live the exact same lifestyle I'm living.
an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity can be changed by conversion therapy. Williams worries such a bill would forbid the counseling he insists saved his life by calling all of it conversion therapy.
At 17 years old, I was suicidal. I started
But
seeing.
that's not necessarily what HR 3570 is. According to this, HR 3570, the Therapeutic Fraud Prevention Act of 2019 defines conversion therapy as a compensated practice or treatment that seeks to change another person's sexual orientation or gender identity. The bill was introduced in the House on June 27th, 2019. In the bill's wording, conversion therapy includes efforts to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity, change behaviors or gender expressions, eliminate or reduce sexual or romantic attraction or feelings towards people of the same gender. Now, the thing is that a person can go to counseling and go to a Christian counselor, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. Was the guy a Christian when he was going to see a Christian counselor and he was still gay? Because that's what the guy said. He was seeing his Christian counselor for 5 years. The bill also says conversion therapy does not include practices that do not seek to change orientation or gender identity, such as helping someone undergoing gender transitions, providing acceptance, support, understanding, coping, help, social support, or identity exploration, sexual orientation, neutral interventions to prevent unlawful conduct or unsafe sexual practices. So in plain English, HR 3570 targets paid attempts to change or suppress someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or same attraction. It carves out supportive counseling, transition-related assistance, identity exploration, and neutral safety legal interventions. So there was nothing. The therapy that guy was probably seeking for 5 years under the Christian counselor was probably just fine. The Christian counselor wasn't specifically having the goal to change this person's sexual orientation, but helping them to go, all right, there seems to be some problems here, and then going from there. If the intent was to convert, that might be a problem, especially if they're paying money. Hey, I'm going to pay you money, Christian counselor, to convert me to heterosexuality. That would be problem. That would be or they go, if you pay me money, then I'll sit down with you and I'll help convert you to be a heterosexual. Right. The only problem here, but again, the problem that I see here is this idea that heterosexuality is innate. I think JiL thinks that heterosexuality, and it wouldn't surprise me, that heterosexuality is an innate position from birth. And that somewhere along the line, something happens to where they get, quote unquote, for lack of a better term, this is a bad word to use, perverted and becomes a homosexual. And then they need help getting back, quote unquote, getting back to normal.
And a Christian counselor who I saw weekly for 5 years. And it changed. That was the last day I felt suicidal.
Pastor Jim Doman says similar counseling helped him go from gay guy to heterosexual husband and dad. But HR 3570 brands such therapy toxic, saying it is substantially dangerous to an individual's mental and physical health. Doman, of course, disagrees.
What? How is it? What? So what? How? Can you show us, give us a demonstration? It's dangerous to an individual's mental and physical health. Tell us how.
I think there is studies on it. Okay, it's doing its thing.
Such professionals have also determined that the potential risk of conversion therapy, and not only that it's ineffective, so they couldn't just leave it at that. Well, it doesn't work. Since when did we ban things because we believe they don't work for some people? What?
That's a stupid question, but okay.
People are Marxists. They're trained Marxists. But we kicked them out of the White House, so they can't really do anything for another 4 years.
What does that have to do with Marxism?
So thank God. Now they want to say, oh, it's dangerous. Tell us how it's dangerous. Tell us how it's dangerous. You can't. You can't.
Of course, disagrees.
These bills would not only prohibit it, it's almost like we'd have to go underground to seek help. And it breaks my heart when you hear the stories of people who've been sexually abused, people who are suicidal, people going through depression and seeking help, or they want to go in a different direction. That would not be, be very, very difficult, if not impossible to do.
Many here are Christians who also give God the credit for their radical change. Elizabeth Woning brought a warning for a culture that would reject that power and instead embrace what the Bible says is toxic.
We are denying our own biology. We are hating ourselves. We have higher rates of mental illness and suicide. The farther Christianity gets out of the mainstream, the more broken we're becoming in America.
These folks are saying while laws are
Ugh, they drank the Kool-Aid.
being passed to protect people like those in the gay and trans.
By the way, the hashtag no homo there, originally, so I had to go back. Originally, that term no homo, from how I remember getting first introduced to no homo, was like if another guy, if one guy smacked another guy on the ass, they'd go no homo. Like, hey, great game, buddy, and then they smack the guy on the ass, no homo. Apparently now it means something something worse.
Transgender communities, other people who want to swim against the cultural mainstream will be hurt by those very laws.
Wow.
But how is a person's sexual? Okay.
That's an old video, but this just wanted to play that to show you the level of degeneracy that these people can get to.
That had nothing to do with trans. That was just homosexuality. Those are just people who are homosexual, and then supposedly converted. And like that woman, she seemed to be implying that there is a normalcy to heterosexuality, whereas there is no normalcy to homosexuality. So somewhere along the line, she was fed a lot of times. Also, some of these people there's problems. There's a lot of hurt. They seek and there's identity politics that go along with this. There's a lot that can be looked at. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but JiL is the worst person to ever have a conversation about homosexuality. There is plenty of examples out there of homosexuals living perfectly happy, productive lives, no problem. Just don't fuck with them, right? A lot of this stuff, like people wanting to convert back, looking to go to conversion therapy, seeking help because of suicide. A lot of that stemmed from the fact that it was the way that they were being pushed against for coming out as being gay or having those same-sex attractions, whether or not they were ever even engaging in same-sex intercourse. The fact that they would say, look, I'm a guy or I'm a woman and I'm sexually attracted to the same sex. And immediately families, especially for young people who grew up in religious households, that was very hard for them, because now there's no longer an acceptance. There's no longer this, oh well, okay, we're going to have a conversation about this. For the Christian families, is, don't you know the Bible says don't stick your dick in another man's ass? Because to JiL, that's all that it means to be, and that's all the part that he really focuses on when it comes to homosexuality, is one man sticking his dick in another man's ass. For one, it's bad for a man to stick his dick in another man's ass, and it's really bad for a man to accept the dick of another man in his ass. Because JiL's always said, well, that's what homosexuality is, or at least that's what he always insinuates and / implies. He'll go, well, yep, it's all about butt sex. You can have homosexuals that do not engage in any kind of anal sex whatsoever. You can have homosexuals who are completely chaste.
When you reject the gospel, when you reject the glorious gospel of Christ, and
my ass is JiL's
this is
the
what
worst
can
person.
happen
Yes,
to you.
yes.
You can start believing.
No, Jesus's gospel doesn't negate doesn't the gospel does not. There's nothing logically contradictory in a person accepting Jesus Christ as their Lord and personal Savior and having same-sex attraction, JiL.
That men are,
The problem is when people want when for some weird reason people think that their sexual attraction needs to coincide with their identity politic. And in this case, how can I be a quote unquote true Christian? No, true Christian is attracted to members of the same sex. So if you have a person who is convinced of Christianity, believes in Christianity, but has same-sex proclivities, they feel as though they're in contradiction with one another. Those aren't necessarily contradictory. There's a bunch of shit. You can go to Dan McClellan's site and he goes into he has a lot of videos about homosexuality in the Bible. And the Bible doesn't really say a whole lot about women on women sexual interaction.
Or can become women, and you can be born that way. Oh yeah, someone likes the thumbnail. Yeah, I like this thumbnail too. You know, this Chat GPT thing, man, it is amazing. I just type in what I want the picture to be, and I type in, well, I want taco, and that's B.S. Lewis. Now the two people in the middle, I know Maud was asking about that on her show earlier. The guy with the horns, he is an atheist who I've spoken with a couple of times. I can't remember his name right now, but I'll look him up. But he's got his own little YouTube. He's on TikTok, like most of these atheists in their 40s now. They no longer want to hang around 40-year-olds like myself, 40 to 50-year-olds. They want to run to TikTok and debate the little 18-year-old Christians, the 14-year-old Christians pretending to be 18, so they can get on to the show.
I think the guy right there in the sunglasses is supposed to be Seth Andrews. The other guy with the horns, I think I might know who that is, but the far right is B.S. Lewis, and the one on the left right there, that's supposed to be Tacos.
That's who they want to debate now. So I'll call in. The second time I called in, I have that on tape, by the way. I was taping the entire time because I knew he wasn't going to let me up. But the first time I called in, I totally embarrassed him. That's on my channel. He didn't even know what a metaphor was. Seriously. He did not know what a metaphor was. So I concluded that he wasn't ready to even begin reading the Bible, let alone criticizing it. You don't know what a metaphor is. The second time I called in, he kept me backstage for almost 45 minutes. He finally brought me up and wouldn't let me speak at all, and pretended like he didn't know it was JiL. He knew it was JiL. The third guy, I don't know who this third guy is. I put it in ChatGPT. I wanted it to be Aaron Ra. I wanted the third guy to be Aaron Ra, and it brought up this random guy, and then it just put atheist, and then on there, I think on his shirt it says something about because evidence matters. but I wanted that one to be Aaron Ra. So I don't know who that third guy is. That's just some random guy. It looks like the guy that plays what's the guy from the Avengers?
Robert Downey Jr.
Looks like the guy that plays Iron Man from the Avengers. That's who it looks like to me. But
I think ChatGPT got Aaron Ra mixed up with possibly with Seth Andrews.
Yeah, so those are the three atheists, the four atheists. Three of them I don't know, but this was supposed to be Aaron Ra. So you have Taco, you have this guy here. He likes to wear devil horns, or he likes to wear ram horns. That's a ram horn. He likes to wear that to try to trigger Christians. And then, of course, you have B.S. Lewis. Oh yeah. See, the atheists, they are interested in Mormonism now, because when they fall out the back door, the absurdity of atheism, they'll never fall into Christ's hands, because
you can tour the Mormon temple and because you want to see what it's like, the Mormon tabernacle, if you can admire it for its architecture without accepting Mormonism, JiL. You fucking dweeb.
Well, it might be the case that Christ never knew them. So they will ultimately, because they're seeking to fill a void, a spiritual void, they will ultimately seek out some sort of spiritual awakening. Buddhisms, Mormonisms, all the isms. They will embrace one of the isms, probably Buddhism, because it doesn't require them to believe in a God. So they like.
Mm-hmm. So because you've had conversations with, because it sounds like he's trying to. It sounds like he's trying to make Knock, the Raging Atheist, the the example of all that is atheists, all that is non-believers. Look, I don't know about the rest of the non-believers on my fucking channel, but when I deconverted from Christianity, it was a relief. So no, I don't have to look for any kind of fill in the gap kind of thing. That taking that off of my fucking, taking that away, removing that from my mental landscape while still having the knowledge and still being able to talk about it, not being emotionally or intellectually invested in it, took a huge load off my mind.
Like that one, they prefer that one as well. They prefer that spirituality or some sort of new age metaphysics repackaged for atheist consumption. And they add that to their repertoire of their subjective morality. They add that to the mix, sort of, and they feel as though they're more complete, because they're no longer just purely.
Sounds like a lot of gaslighting, JiL. Jesus Christ, man. He does not remember. It's like he does not remember talking to my brother and me. We are not like this at all. He is referring right now to Knock, to the Raging Atheist, and Skylar Fiction.
The naturalist, now they have some spirituality that they can add to the mix.
And possibly Brojo.
My link is pinned. I don't censor like you, Libro, because I own you. I simply own you.
Oh, you've censored.
Simply own you.
You've censored. You've kicked me. You've censored people lots of times. You invited them up, put them in the back, kicked them. Yep, you do it all the time, Joe. Well, maybe you've stopped. I haven't participated in a lot of your bullshit live streams or anything, so. But I think the last time I was on one of your, last time I had tried to have a conversation on one of his streams, you kicked me.
On the liberal. Let me give you an example of that. Let me share my screen here. I simply own these guys. I come into their chats, but they do let me in, and they're talking about the Bible and talking nasty stuff about the Bible. They stop talking about the Bible when I come in. And I feel good when that happens. Because they don't want a Christian to respond. A knowledgeable Christian. They want.
This is weird because every time I've seen JiL in a panel and William Freeman's there, William Freeman has no problem engaging in that kind of conversation with JiL at all. He will, yeah. And William Freeman and I don't agree on. There's stuff that William Freeman and I do not agree on, especially politically. But when it comes to, and there's probably stuff that the way that Will kind of criticizes Christianity that I may not agree with. Either way, kudos to him. He'll throw down with JiL, no problem. So I don't know what JiL's. I've met plenty of non-believers that will. And the other thing is that what JiL is not mentioning is that a lot of these people that he's referring to, they have given JiL a lot of opportunity to have conversations, and he has made an ass out of himself to where they go, I don't want anything more to do with this idiot. So that's another reason why this isn't just coming out of the fucking, this isn't just, oh, I go into this channel where no one knows me and they just treat me like shit and nobody wants to talk to me. No, those people have talked. You're going into panels. Those people have talked to you and they go, there's no point in having a conversation with you on these particular topics because you're a fucking stubborn idiot. You're completely obtuse.
The dumb Christians to respond. Oh, no, I shouldn't say dumb. They want the Christians who are not ready to give an answer. So I gotta be more humble. They want those Christians to respond. They want to surround themselves with those Christians, but not Amicus, not Axiom, not Veckel, not JiL, not Smokey the Saint before he became Smokey the Ain't. They do not want those Christians around because they know they're going to get hammered.
I've never been hammered by them. In fact, I've made a lot of you guys just scree. Just literally freak the fuck out, get pissed off, and run or kick, whichever the case might be. You can go back and watch videos where my brother has done the same thing. They just gotten fucking fed up. Oh, you don't see my brother going around going, yeah, we beat all these fucking filthy Christians. We don't pull this shit. This is the haughtiness of JiL. This is a haughty mentality.
They're going to get hammered. How about those New York Knickerbockers? Did I mention that the New York Knickerbockers are world champions? Did I mention that? About those New York Knickerbockers, right? Yeah, in 5. I said Knicks in 6, but they shocked me and they won it in 5. Yeah. So this was B.S. Lewis's channel. B.S. Lewis, stop talking about the Bible. You haven't studied long enough.
That's funny coming from JiL.
To speak on these topics, okay?
This is funny considering
you just haven't.
I just spent the first like hour of this video, or 45 minutes to an hour of this video, showing everybody on my channel how he can't read, how he basically doesn't remember Numbers 5:11. Or Numbers 5:11 through whatever. The better waters. I mean, he says, oh, it's not the water that brings the curse. It's God that brings the curse. No, it specifically says that it's the water that brings the curse.
Sorry to break the news. Okay, sorry to break the news to you. But you just don't have enough information.
Actually, those are rules for how to do it right.
Yeah.
They just out now killed slaves in those days. I mean, it was worse than American chattel slave.
All right, so the rules on how to, this is a common atheistic apologetic. It's an atheist apologetic, okay? Well, the Bible, they had slavery too, but they, did slavery. The Christians say that they did it the right way. No, not exactly.
But those weren't.
Not exactly.
I don't know who made that argument, or claim.
There is, what's the word I'm looking for? There is the skin of the truth. Once again, this is how they operate. So you have to.
So now remember, I mentioned earlier in this video, now he's going to go to some intentionality, whereas before he was saying they're ignorant. He was saying, so as far as I understand it, I don't know about Korach the Bard. I'm assuming a non-believer. All these 3 people, JiL would just possibly classify as atheists. Therefore, they're ignorant. They don't know how logic works. They don't even know how math works. They're just ignorant, right? They can't read the Bible. They don't understand things. Logic evades them, like he said earlier. Now he's going to go. Now, I'm betting, because I haven't seen this part, I'm betting he's now going to appeal to some kind of intentional deception on their part.
You have to take small bites when you're dealing with the liberal, because they operate like Satan did in the garden. Did Satan really tell a lie in the garden? He gave them the truth.
Yeah, no, he didn't lie. But that's not Satan. That's not the devil in that narrative.
The skin of the truth, stuffed with a big fat lie. That's the best way to lie. Ask Satan.
There's quite a bit
Okay.
of truth to that.
So the ancients used the concept of slave or vet or work or debt collection.
Which is it?
They used the concept of work to pay everything instead of money.
No. Where is he getting that from?
$20 bills, $50 bills. Their form of currency was work.
No, they actually had set currency. What do you think the going price for a slave was? It's 30 shekels for I think it was 30 shekels of silver for a female slave, 50 shekels of silver for a male. Something in that order. They had commerce. They had money.
If you owed someone, you borrowed their calf and didn't give it back, or you borrowed their goat and it got lost, you couldn't go to your ATM, put in your MAC card, punch a couple buttons.
Why would anybody need to borrow a goat? Why would anyone need to borrow a goat? You mean borrow an ox for plowing? That would be the only thing I could think of.
And outflows
Oh my God,
dollars and
this
cents.
is going to be funny.
So in order to pay back the individual you owe or you harmed, criminals were forced to pay restitution.
How is that?
So you were forced to work because you committed a crime against this individual or against society.
How? What?
Okay, remember,
How
work
did you do that?
is the currency. Work is the currency, whether you're guilty or not guilty, whether you're working to pay a debt off.
He's what has he done here? So first you're going into somebody buying something, then you're going into a crime being committed. So wait, Jill, are you saying that if back then if somebody borrowed, because you brought it up, borrowed someone else's goat and then the goat got lost, that was a crime? Or that if they borrowed a person's goat and the goat got lost, there was no form of restitution other than work? This is really bizarre.
Off, or whether you're working voluntarily to pay back your neighbor, whether you're working voluntarily because you want to take the hand of one of the owner's daughters, Laban.
No.
Poor Joseph. Joseph worked 7 years for Rachel. He said, I want Rachel. He went to Laban and said, I want to marry one of your daughters. I will work 7 years for you. And what did he do? He gave him Leah. And then Laban tricks him into working another 7 years. So this is a voluntary system. Money is.
But hold on a second. All right, this is a narrative. I had to look this one up. Wait. Wait, so Jill's missing something here. This is funny. All right, so I'm going to read this to you because this is what he's referring to. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. As he looked, he saw a well in the field and 3 flocks of sheep lying there beside it. For out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and all the flocks were gathered there. The shepherds would roll the stone from the mouth of the well in the water sheet and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where do you come from?" They said, "We are from Haran." He said to them, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" They said, "We do." He said to them, "Is it well with him?" "Yes," they replied. "And here is his daughter Rachel coming with the sheep." He said, "Look, it is still broad daylight. It is not time for the animals to be gathered. It is not time for the animals to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go pasture them." But they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and the stone is rolled from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. Now, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of his mother's brother Laban. This would be Jacob's niece. Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of his mother's brother Laban. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and wept aloud. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news about his sister's son, Jacob, he ran to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all these things, and Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then it goes into Jacob marries Laban's daughter. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was graceful and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "This is his fucking niece." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and then seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. So he served 7 years for Rachel, but it seemed like only a 7. Yeah. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Isn't time lovely?" Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her maid. When morning came, it was Leah, and Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me?" Laban said, "This is not done in our country, giving the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years." Jacob did, and so he completed her week. So okay, so Jacob did so and completed her week. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel to be her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. He served Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben. For she said, because the Lord has looked on my affliction, surely now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. And she named him Simeon. Again, they bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be joined to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore he was named Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. Oh shit. Way to go, JiL. Okay. So the thing that JiL is referencing is Jacob had the hots for his niece. And remember that the uncle gave him his choice of wages. He gave him the serving the 7 years. He was not a slave though.
Is work. Work is money. Work is the currency. Are we there? Are we following liberal? I know.
Not necessarily. Work isn't necessarily the money in all cases. He asked him, he's ignoring the fact that Laban asked Jacob, what shall your wages be? He didn't just say, well, the default is that you work for me. Then Jacob said, well, yeah, I'm really interested in your daughter, Rachel. So I'll serve you for 7 years if you give me her as a wife.
No, it's hard because you have your iPad and your iPhone and your black card. No, you don't have a black card. You have an EBT card. So I know it's hard for you to understand work. I know it's hard for you to understand what work is because you're a liberal. Okay.
What the fuck is he talking about?
But in the ancients, work is a currency. Okay, that's the first thing. So the concept of aved, or what was translated in the King James as slave,
No.
came before.
Most of it is translated in the King James as servant. The King James translation does not use the word slave often. It's only found in there, like maybe in the entire King James, translation, I think slave is only used like 3 or 4 times. It's almost always, Eved is almost always translated as servant in the King James.
Or your modern definition. Their definition did not just include someone who was kidnapped and forced into labor.
That is not the necessity that does not necessitate slavery, dude. You're still using that weak ass claim. A person does not have to be kidnapped and forced to do labor to be a slave. Yes, and again, being kidnapped, the Jews could kidnap other people. They could not kidnap a fellow Israelite. An Israelite man could not kidnap another Israelite man, keep him or sell him as a slave or anything like that. That was the kidnapping that they're talking about.
It also included voluntary workers like you or myself.
What are you talking about?
So you have debt collection. Work is the way to pay back debt. That is the currency.
But wait a minute. Where did the debt come from, Joe? Did the debt come from not getting more than what your work would pay off? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense, Joe. Where does the debt, what's the debt? It's how is the debt accrued? Is it based on, oh, now you owe me oh wait, so you're in debt for me for 180 hours, even though you keep working for me, and that's the constant currency, but because you've done and gotten these other things, how did you get other stuff? Like, right, you own land and you have in does he not know? This is incredible.
You had people who were prisoners. And now, according to Deuteronomy 28, I believe, they are obligated to pay back society by working, not by paying.
Mm, no, I think that's hold on a second. Yeah, it's not Deuteronomy 28, it's Deuteronomy 20. It's about if you rules of warfare.
A fine.
Hmm?
And you also had people who fine society by working, not by.
Well, they were corvée labor. They became a an involuntary workforce for their conqueror, which is the Israelite nation.
By paying a fine. And
What fee are they paying? What are they paying back to society? Remember, these are tribal nations, so you have a society. Jill's got this really weird way of looking at ancient history, at the ancient Near East, right? He's saying, oh well, the reason, like, he's going to Exodus Deuteronomy 28. I think he means Deuteronomy 20, and right when it says, it talks about the Israelites approach another nation, right, to go to war with them. They're first to offer terms of peace with them, and then if the nation doesn't basically acquiesce to the terms of peace, they're to kill all the men and take all the women and children as fucking plunder. As slaves. But if they accept the term, if the nation accepts this other nation state accepts the terms of peace, then everybody becomes corvée labor. They become indentured servants to, or not indentured servants. They become forced labor for Israel. That's corvée labor. So, but what are they paying back to society? What did the other nation do that they need to pay back society for? Israel attacked them. It sounds like Jill is making this claim, like Jill is still under this impression that Israel was like was like America is today. So Israel was going into a nation that was full of a bunch of bad people to basically systematically root them out and have them face justice for their bad shit. I don't know where he gets this idea from. That other nation is another independent nation state. They're their own society. The Babylonians, their own society. The Chaldeans, their own society. There's no global unity. This is all tribal nations, tribal states. The only thing they would have to pay back to society is whatever a person who's a part of their tribe did against their own nation state.
And you also had people who were making a living. They were also called avets. People like you or I.
No. People making a living, getting paid, that's a sahir, Joe. A hired worker is a sahir, not an avid.
People like of mice and men. Was that Steinbeck? Larry and Curly. Read that book. We need to bring back the novels, the classical novels. Instead of
Okay. I thought that was the case. So this is hilarious. I gotta find this as a blurb, or gotta record this for a blurb. Let me go back 20 seconds.
a living. They were also called avets. People like you or I. People like of mice and men. Was that Stein?
Which is a fiction. Yep. Okay.
Back.
Yep.
Larry and Curly.
That's that's what I thought. No. It's not Larry and Curly. It's George and Lenny.
Read that book. We need to bring back the novels, the classical. Curly people were making a living. They were also called avets. People like you or I. People like of mice and men. Was that Steinbeck? Larry and Curly. Read that book. We need to bring back the novels, the classical novels.
Is he referring? I think he's referring to the characters of Mice and Men as being Larry and Curly. That's why I had to look that up. I was like, it's been a while since I never read the book. I watched the movie. I watched the movies. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but Lenny was played by John Malkovich, I believe. And anyway, yeah, that's George and Lenny. You ignorant shit.
Instead of reading Jim Crow 2.0. Pick up John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. You will learn that not too long ago, this was still a thing. Men traveled onto other men's property and they were purchased. They were hired to work for a specified amount of time, for a specified reason, whatever.
Wait. No, they weren't purchased. They were. It's kind of like being a day laborer. They were ranchers. They were. So if I remember correctly, Mice of Men is based in the Depression, and they are looking for work, and they're taken on as farmhands. And farmhands got to live on the ranch so that they had a place. There was a bunkhouse. There was a bunkhouse for the ranch hands. But I believe that they were still paid. I don't think they were not paid. They may not have been paid very much because, again, I think it's based in the Depression era. It's also, I believe, a work of fiction, Joe.
Whatever the reason is, whatever the payment is. Oh, and by the way, you had to pay your aveds in the scriptures.
Why did you have to pay the... Wait, why would you have to pay your aveds if work was the currency, Joe? Okay, I think I'll come back to this later tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give this a rest. This is getting funny. I'm at 45, 55, so that should be easy enough to remember where I'm at. This is hilarious. I do need to remember to make a short of this particular part. Shouldn't take me very long. That's hilarious. But yeah, I've only got one viewer. I don't know who's still viewing. I have no clue. But anyway, thanks to all those who joined, said hi. The one person that's still here. Because yeah, how long have I been going? Yeah, 2.5 hours. Yeah, it's a good place to stop for now. This is starting to get really funny. This is getting really funny. All right, have a good one.